So, just briefly, can you tell me what's your name, what's your tag, and what do you do for Smash?
Yeah, my name is Alex Caesar. My tag is Big Al. I am currently a sponsored TO, sponsored by R3 Gaming and Media. Shoutouts to Quincy. He's a huge help to the scene. And what I mostly do is I go to tournaments, go 0-2, and then help run tournaments. So I'm what they call a TO, meaning I help with setup, help run brackets, keep track of players, settle disputes, and things like that.
I thought it was Cesare.
I
actually thought it was
It's technically. Do we want to redo it so I can say Cesare? You know, like be all fancy and everything.
He's looking too far to the left. It looks weird.
Am I? Oh, or is my like? Should I not tilt my head?
Yeah,
Should I be like that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
You're like, yeah. See, like you're getting like the side of his face almost.
Well, he's looking right over there. Can you look over
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, like look
Like
more,
there?
Yeah.
Okay, like that? No,
just
but like that. But look at you.
Just look at her right now like you would be if you were talking to her.
Okay,
Normal.
it's a little tough because the light's there, but I'll
Yeah,
get used to it eventually.
Okay.
Okay.
You might have to deal a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it there. That looks good.
All right. Cool.
Okay. How do you explain Project M to normal people?
Well, that's a little tough. How do I explain Project M to normal people? Well, first I tell them, have you ever played Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Nintendo Wii? And usually people say yeah. And then I tell them, okay, did you like Brawl or did you not like Brawl? And sometimes people say, yeah, I thought it was cool. I like, Pit and all the other extra characters they added. Snake's kind of dope. Like everyone loves Snake. But then they always say, oh, sometimes, stuff like tripping. I didn't like some of the items and things like that. Some of the stages were a little weird. And you tell them, well, what if somebody came and gave you Brawl graphics and stages and gameplay and music, but made it a little more competitive, made it more like Melee in the sense that, you've got your wave dashing, and then they're like, what's wave dashing? And then, that's a whole nother story. But basically, I tell them it's a mod of Brawl for the Wii to play more like Melee for the GameCube, but with extra balance added to characters and extra kind of features and stuff like that. So you get the best of Melee balance and kind of mechanics, and you also get some of the extra Brawl mechanics too, which kind of makes it really exciting. And personally, it's my favorite Smash game. I just really like how it plays, how it looks, how it feels, and all of it makes a pretty cool package.
Can you briefly explain what's tripping?
Tripping. Okay, so when Melee came out, it was kind of, at first it was a party game, but people found out, oh, there's all this stuff you can do. You can, air dodge into the stage to get a little bit of speed when you're moving. You can, L cancel, which is basically you cancel the ending animation of your aerial moves and things like that. So over time, the game got a lot more technical, a lot more advanced, and people were playing it really seriously. So the dev and main producer of the Melee series, Masahiro Sakurai, he didn't like that the game looked like it was being super competitive. So he added a few things into Brawl to make it less serious in nature, I guess. And one of those was tripping, which was basically the idea that every X or so inputs, you had a chance of the input failing and you would trip, and then you'd be on a grounded state, which doesn't sound horrible at first when you think about it, but because of the way Brawl works, if you're in a trip state, there's a lot of stuff your opponent can do. So it actually ended up kind of being worse for the competitive scene, because a lot of matches, you would see tournament sets decided by someone tripping and then the other person taking advantage of that. And so you would have to memorize combos for trips and things like that too. So it kind of went both ways. The competitive people made use of it and kind of abused it, and the non-competitive people were like, that's weird, I don't kind of like this. So I think it meant well that Sakurai put it in, kind of making it so, hey, don't take this too seriously because, you might lose because you trip and got hit with an F smash. But at the end of the day, I think it just made a lot of people kind of not super happy with the game.
Okay. If I am writing notes, it's just because you're saying good stuff.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
Just a note, we are picking up the whatever bullshit song that is.
Should I talk a little louder then?
It's not. You can't do anything about it. It's just
yeah.
The levels are, and if I turn it down, it'll make you quieter, and we're barely getting levels on you as it is.
Yeah, I tend to talk a little low if it's not tourney setting.
The weird part is, hold hearing it, and it's like there. But
Yeah. You might not be picking up the levels. You might just be hearing it,
Yeah.
like,
I think
'cause of the
if
acoustics of
there's,
the
like,
building.
A small amount of background, like that's not a big deal.
yeah.
no, I actually don't even think it's gonna pick it up. But
Okay.
It's just I hear it for some reason. Good.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
just
the
keep
acoustics of the room probably.
So can you? Oh, we kind of talked about that, so we'll move on. How did you get into Project M?
Oh, how did I get into Project M? That is an interesting story. So, I used to play a lot of Melee back in the early kind of, I would say, golden age. You know, back when MLG was a thing. Evo kind of hadn't picked up Melee, so it was kind of in the grassroots stage, but it still had some sponsorship. And so I played it a ton. I was super competitive, even though I didn't really go to tournaments because I was a young kid and couldn't travel. But I still loved playing it, and I played with anyone and everyone who I could play with. And then Brawl came out, and I played it. Wasn't entirely happy with it, but I played it for I think a year or two, and then I just kind of lost interest in it. And then one day I decided, hey, this Dolphin emulator looks cool. I can play my Wii games in HD. And then someone told me, hey, there's a mod called Project M. And I was like, what's that? And they're like, well, it's basically a mod of Brawl, and it makes it a little more competitive. And I was like, hey, that's exactly what I would like, you know, out of Brawl. So I downloaded it. I want to say that was 3.02. And then I played some of it, really liked it. I was like, this seems like it's not super finished, but I like what I see here. So I kind of just dropped it for a bit. And then fast forward to, I think, 3.5 release sometime around 2012, 13-ish. I know it was the same year Paragon LA was. I can't remember whenever that was off the top of my head. Was that 15? Dang, man, time flies. Anyways, yeah, so I downloaded it, played it with my brother. We were playing on Xbox controllers, you know, hooked up to our PC to play Dolphin, and we really liked it. And then a friend of mine told me, hey, I haven't seen your Peach in forever. We're doing tournaments in town again. And I was like, heck, I'll go. And they had Project M, and so I got to play. And then went to Paragon LA, had the time of my life there. Fun story, I almost beat Sword of Justice, SOJ. So that was kind of cool, and then after that I was hooked, and I'm like, I want to go to more tournaments, I want to play more PM, because it's a fun game.
How'd you become a TO?
That is how I became a TO. That's a pretty fun story. So basically, after Paragon LA, I was really kind of fired up in terms of like playing Smash and everything. I saw like, you know, Humble Dojo and Raging Cherry running tournaments and the brackets and everything. I was like, that seems cool. I want to do that. I want to be the person that people can like go, hey, Big Al, what do I need to do? And then I'm like yelling at him to go do this and that and everything. Because it kind of seemed cool. And if I wasn't going to be a pro player because I had work and school and everything, I was going to be someone who could help the scene in other ways. Because everyone can do their little part to make, you know, the games they play a little better. That's kind of a belief I have. So anyways, around the end of so Paragon LA was in September. I believe right after we lost our venue for our locals in town, and that's when I started TOing, because we have it's called Extra Life. It's like a charity fundraiser gaming event, and I was asked to run a Smash tournament there. And somehow, in between Paragon and that tournament, we lost the venue that we normally played at. So we were like trying to find new venues and everything. And I thought, well, all right, let's take a break. Let's run this charity tournament, and then we'll find more venues. And we had, I want to say for PM, we had like 60-something entrants for that, which was like one of the biggest tournaments we've had in town. And it was for a charity event. So there were a lot of like new people and random players and everything. It was a good time. It was really stressful, but I did it, and I liked it, and I was like, I can keep doing this. So I went looking for venues. We found one in January of 2016, and we've been running them ever since. So it was a rocky start at first, but you know, I think a lot of TOs get that trial by fire, and then after a while you just kind of get used to it.
How does you feel the rest of the Smash community kind of views Project M and the Project M community?
Oh man, so in terms of how the other Smash communities, or the Smash community on the whole, how they view PM, it can be a little hit or miss. You have people that love it, you know, like me, and I play tons of games. I love fighting games. I love competitive games. So I see every Smash has something in it that is interesting, that I like. Other people may not. You know, some people think, oh, why are you guys trying to keep Brawl alive? You know, the same people that say, oh, why are you trying to keep Melee alive? And, you know, the simple fact is people like to play it. And if people like to play a game, I don't see why there would be any reason to not do it. But you see it a lot with top level pros, like for Melee, you know, shout outs to Armada, kind of saying things without, you know, thinking about it, and people just kind of thinking, well, it's a mod of a game. Nintendo doesn't really like mods, therefore, you know, let's just not pay any attention to it. And then you get stories of people talking about, you know, the game as it is now, like it was 3.02 or something like that, where they just kind of haven't given it a second look. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, you know, because for the longest time, I wasn't really a fan of Smash 4, wasn't really a fan of 64, and then I went to a couple tournaments, you know, I talked to some people, I saw what they like in the game, and now I kind of have an appreciation for them too. So I think if more people would, you know, kind of stop being kind of like click-ish with Smash games and just realize that we're all kind of playing the same sort of thing, you know, we're all here for the same, you know, party game kind of mindset, that I think they would find something they enjoy in PM. And you see that a lot at tourneys, like where there's Melee and Smash 4 and PM. People will just sit down at a PM setup and play around a bit, and they usually end up coming away liking it. So I'm even trying to get some of the Melee, like hardcore players in town to get into PM, and they seem to be having a good time with it.
I'm gonna stop you right there so I can
I'll try and
roll in.
enunciate a little more.
Let's see. So you came in kind of after 3.0, yeah?
Yeah. I would say if I had to pick a time where I really came into PM, it would be the viewfinder.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So when I came into PM, on the whole, I took a little bit of a look at it during 3.02 and then kind of like filed it away as, oh, this will be cool when it's finished. And then 3.5 came out, and that's when I really got into it. I really liked how 3.5 Bowser felt, like back in the day. That I used to be a Bowser main, and I really enjoyed it in 3.5. And then, you know, I played it up until 3.6 final. So, I mean, I still play it, but I used to too.
Okay. Let's skip down here a little bit. What's VGBC and what's Xanadu?
Oh no!
Why are those things in
Why?
here?
Oh.
You don't even. Okay.
What's VGBC? What's Xanadu? I'm glad you asked. Okay, so Xanadu is, I want to say, a venue in MDVA. They're like kind of East Coast-ish. And VG Bootcamp, VGBC, they are a group of streamers and content creators. They have a Twitch stream, they have a YouTube channel, and they used to be, I mean, they still are, but they used to be kind of the big name for Smash streaming. For those of you coming in from the fighting game side of things, if you know Team Spooky, they were kind of like the Team Spooky for Smash. They kind of started from the ground up. They've just been, you know, working a lot, working really hard on getting content out there for people and doing streams. And they're kind of one of the biggest names in Smash in terms of, you know, content production and stream, you know, services and things like that.
Who's Gimmer?
Gimmer is the head of VGBC, at least as I understand it. I don't know if that's his official title or not, but he's kind of the figurehead, kind of puts himself out there as the guy to talk to if you need to get in touch with VGBC, and he's kind of, I guess you would say he's the public face of that team.
What's jank?
Oh, okay. So jank, I believe, and don't quote me on this, the technical term for jank is something that just kind of feels a little off. I'm pretty sure everyone has played an indie game where the controls just feel a little unorthodox, things feel a little weird. A good example I like to give people, if they've played Little Big Planet, some people don't like how the jumps feel in that compared to like a Mario game. So they might say, oh, this feels a little jank. It just feels a little off, a little unusual, something you weren't expecting. In the context of Project M, jank is referred to stuff that is unexpected. Just those little touches. Like I think for a long time, one of my favorite examples of jank was Link and Toon Link. If you hit with max range tether to get a grab, you would get like a frame or two of pause before the grab finished. And it used to frustrate me as a player because to me it felt like, oh, I could have dodged that if I was just a little bit further out, but no, they got like the perfect punish because I wasn't spacing right. And so I used to call that kind of jank. I think nowadays jank kind of is a combination of matchup inexperience and just general not understanding how the brawl systems affect the melee systems in terms of PM, and kind of how that combination of the two of them makes this kind of like Reese's peanut butter cup that can sometimes feel a little unusual at times. And I think, when players want a reason to kind of be upset about things that happen in the game, or they don't understand what went on, they just kind of call it jank and move on.
Can you tell me a little bit about how the release of Smash 4 affected the Project M community?
Well, I think, so in terms of how Smash 4 affected PM when it came out, I remember playing Project M a lot before the Smash 4 release. And I remember seeing Smash 4 at E3 and things like that and being excited about it, thinking, hey, someone check if there's wave dashing, someone check if this, and this are in the game, can we glide toss? Can we, reverse aerial rush? Can we, heck, can we even reverse bear? Stuff like that. And the more I read reports, the less I was kind of happy with how Smash 4 looks like it was going. Especially when I watched some of the footage after Evo, I was like, this seems like it may not be the kind of Smash game I want, but it might be interesting enough to play. So I know when it came out, I did play a lot of it. Like I said, wasn't too happy. It kind of felt like Brawl to me in a sense, but I was having less fun with it. So I dropped it pretty quick, but I think getting more players into the scene was really kind of helpful. Anyways, okay, so continuing from where we left off, I think one of the big aspects of Smash 4 is that it brought a lot of players back into the scene. You saw a lot of people that kind of saw Brawl as an ending time, for their play, and they kind of gave it a break. Smash 4 came back and brought them in. They're like, well, maybe here's a new Smash game I can get good at and try. And some of them went back to playing Melee. Some of them went back to playing Project M. I think the biggest, I would say, negative that Smash 4 had on the scene is that with Smash 4 came advertising and kind of Nintendo wanting to get the word out, kind of be a little more vocal about, hey, play our game, you buy Smash 4, play it and things like that. So they started sponsoring tournaments and being at more events. And the more events they were at, the more they saw Project M. And when they saw Project M, they're like, this isn't regular Brawl. I think that started to kind of create a conflict, because over here you've got this brand new game that is new and shiny, looks great on the Wii U, plays a lot differently than Melee or Brawl or even Project M. But Nintendo wants people to play it. They want people to focus on the main game that they have at the time, because it's the new game, it's the game they're charging full price for, and it's the game they want more visibility for, so it looks good to everyone involved in the project. And then in the corner here, you've got Project M, which is a fan-made mod of a game that wasn't, too terribly well received on a competitive standpoint. But now the competitive aspect of it is bringing in pro players like Ally and Mewtwo King and Hungrybox and things like that. And so Nintendo has this conflict of, we want people to play Smash 4, but they seem to be having a lot of fun with this other game that isn't official, and we don't sell the base game for that anymore, and we're not really one to condone mods. So I think Smash 4 brought more visibility to the scene, but that also kind of put PM in a shadow in a sense, that Smash 4 kind of became the main focus of Nintendo, and then they kind of took more interest to people doing things with their old IPs.
That was a good answer.
Yay.
Let's see. So what happened with Gimmer?
Oh, so okay, I'm not one to really keep too much of an eye on YouTube and Twitch and everything. So back then, I wasn't really totally understanding of it. All I knew back then was the kind of, like at Paragon LA, Gimmer was in the lobby when I went to go get my breakfast before pools. And, I said hi to him, and everyone was like, oh man, Gimmer killed PM. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, well, there was a time where Nintendo was trying to reach out to people and, start up their YouTube kind of like content creators program and get people on Twitch streams. And one of the stipulations was that, you can't be playing these kind of mods or these fan games because we don't want people logging onto Twitch or YouTube and being like, oh, why does Nintendo support this? Because it's not really, not Nintendo standard. And I guess that's what happens when you're a bigger company. You obviously have like a public image you have to kind of support and things like that. And they don't really have time to look at everything. So they just kind of told Twitch, Project M is a mod. We don't really allow it or condone it. So if Twitch streamers want to have a subscribe button and get paid to stream from people who want to support them by sending them some money, then you can't be playing these kind of third-party mod games and things like that. So at the time, VG Bootcamp and Gimmer, they were really on the come up. They were doing really good. They were, starting to make some money, make a name for themselves. And then the time came where Nintendo and Twitch kind of asked them, are you going to keep supporting PM and risk losing the ability to gain revenue from your streams on Twitch? Or are you going to help us help Nintendo feel a little more at ease with their content and how it's being used and kind of drop PM? So Gimmer dropped PM, and from my understanding, he had a lot of PM VODs to upload and things like that, and that just kind of didn't happen for the longest time. So a lot of people got mad, and because VGBC was kind of the, big name stream that a lot of people looked up to, a lot of people wanted to be Gimmer, a lot of people wanted to be VGBC in terms of quality and production and being able to kind of make a living, more or less, out of doing what they love with Smash. They kind of followed suit. They saw, well, Gimmer's not going to support PM. We want to be like Gimmer. We also can't really support PM. And so over time, you saw more and more people, the more popular and well-known they got, the more they'd kind of have to distance themselves from PM. It was kind of the game that everyone really enjoyed and wanted to watch and liked playing, but nobody really wanted to acknowledge that, because if you did, then you risked losing the ability for your hobby slash, creative kind of drive to not be able to get you any monetary compensation for it.
What does it mean to be esports?
Oh, okay. So esports, what does it mean to be esports? From my understanding, esports is kind of this new kind of Wild West frontier of everyone hopping on this bandwagon of, hey, millennials are growing up. The previous generation, they grew up with video games. They're starting to get old enough that they have money to do what they want. And instead of things like traditional sports like basketball or soccer or football or baseball, they're turning to competitive gaming because it can be kind of interesting. It's neat to see this kind of 1v1 aspect or kind of 5v5 or 3v3 aspect of teams. And I think it's just another, kind of avenue for advertisers and sports betting, all the kind of sports stuff. You've got advertisers, you've got managers, you've got sponsors, you've got big events trying to draw crowds in, you've got casinos thinking, how do we get younger people in, you've got venues thinking, how do we make the use of our time when it's kind of slow on the weekends and things like that. And then they turn to sponsoring events and players. And with that, you get kind of the PR and HR aspect of sponsoring these teams. Nobody wants to sponsor someone who is bad for the brand. Nobody wants to sponsor an event that some people might see as, oh, this is too hip, this is too, youngster for me, I don't like it, or wow, these kids are kind of just playing a game. Because I think even now, with how far gaming has come, it's still kind of seen as a negative stigma. In terms of a hobby, nobody kind of looks down on you if you spend 3 or 4 hours a day watching TV. Everyone is talking about, the newest Game of Thrones or Westworld or things like that. But you tell someone, hey, I spend 3 or 4 hours a day practicing, my tech chases and my shield drops, and they're like, what are you, a nerd? What is that about? So I think esports is on the come up. It's getting really big. A lot of people are seeing the opportunities to get a lot of advertising, brand recognition and things like that. So they're throwing a lot of money at events and tournaments and sponsoring players. But on the other hand, that means that you have to follow a lot more rules. Things have to be a lot more formal. And while the presentation can, kind of benefit from that, at the same time you kind of lose that kind of grassroots, that kind of heartfelt sort of social aspect that early tournaments have of, a bunch of kids hopping in a car, driving 3 or 4 hours away to play and crashing on somebody's couch or, sofa because they wanted to play the game. And nowadays it feels sometimes that people are playing because that's where the money is, and they're kind of following the money and doing what they need to do to keep that advertising money coming in.
Let's see. I guess I kind of skipped this, but given the opportunity, if you had been in that position, would you have done the same thing that Gimmer did?
Would I have taken the Faustian Gimmer choice? I'm not sure, because I consider Smash and playing video games is a hobby first and foremost. And I was not in a similar situation, but I had, rather recently spent a fair amount of money on a stream setup because I thought, well, we should start streaming, and I thought it'd be cool. I spent a lot of money, kind of wasn't really happy with the result, ended up, selling most of that equipment off, and kind of, I learned a lesson. I prefer VODs to streams personally because people get to watch it. You don't have to go through all the trouble of going back and checking stuff. But if I were Gimmer and this was my job and I was taking that risk, going out on a limb, I probably would have made a similar choice. And, people can say what they want about Gimmer, people can meme and, say he killed PM and everything like that. But I totally understand where he came from. I have seen many a venue turn us down because of what we wanted to do. I've seen many a venue kind of tell us, no, we can't run that, and not even PM, just video games in general. So I understand how hard it can be. And, everyone who does what they love as a living, I have a lot of respect for them because it's not easy. There are times when the money doesn't come in. There are times where it's tough. And sometimes you got to make those tough choices. And I totally understand why Gimmer did it. I'm not super happy, but sometimes you don't get those kind of fairy tale endings where you stick up to the corporate person and then everything turns out okay. You look at like the Xanadu Patreon and things like that, and they don't make terribly much from it, but it's enough to make it work. And they make a lot of money from Twitch. So I can see why they didn't want to lose, that kind of cash cow. It's tough when you're putting yourself out there like that.
Sorry, that was so good. Give me a second.
So how did Gimmer assassinate PM?
I like it. A lot of people like to, focus on a single point as to why something happens. You even see it in competitive games, like, oh, if I hadn't SD'd there, or if I hadn't missed that, follow up, or if I hadn't gotten that grab, I wouldn't have lost. But, a lot of things in life are the culmination of a lot of little moments. I don't think it was necessarily Gimmer himself that, did in PM in a sense, or assassinated PM. I think it was just a perfect storm of everything kind of happening at the same time. PM was getting really popular. Nintendo's new game was getting, kind of popular. It was a bit of a competition. Twitch was getting new. Twitch was on the come up too. They were kind of desperate to make sure that, sponsors and companies and corporations didn't just hand them big old cease and desist. You can't stream this game on Twitch, and then they lose viewers and things like that. So I think it was just a lot of things that kind of ended up making it where the decision was PM's got to go, and while Gimmer didn't really make efforts to delegitimize PM or, actively harm the scene, it was kind of a passive sort of, well, you don't have to go home, but you're not at VGBC anymore, you know. And then it just took people time to figure out what to do. But, you know, we just had Bigger Balk earlier in the year, one of the largest PM nationals. It was as hype as ever. It was pretty well put together. You know, everyone had a good time from who I talked to about it. And PM will live as long as people want it to live. You know, there's always going to be challenges, but at the end of the day, we may not be esports, but we get to be a family, and that's got a whole different set of pros and cons. And the pros are, you know, people are doing it because they really want to do it. And I think that's what really keeps PM going at the end of the day.
Let's see. So how did it kind of feel as an organizer for the game to see these things start happening, and how did you sort of deal with that?
Well, in terms of the whole PM kind of getting ostracized and how I felt as a TO, I came in kind of at the tail end of that. Like I said, I came in a little bit after Paragon, so I was already at the point where I understood PM is this kind of underground thing now. It's going back to grassroots. We don't really get the support of larger, you know, events and teams and sponsors and things like that. So I was always under the impression that this is how it was going to be for a while, and you just got to make do. And luckily, you know, out of college, I had a good, decent paying job. You know, I've got a good work-life balance. So I wasn't necessarily, you know, in a similar situation to Gimmer and VG Bootcamp where I needed to be doing this to make a living. And even though I liked doing it, it was still kind of, if I don't do this, you know, I got to find another, you know, way of life or another job or career. So I was able to approach PM and the Smash scene and TOing as kind of a, this is my hobby. I do it because I want to see people come and get better and have fun and have a place to play, because not everyone can host at their house. You know, not everyone's parents are down with them, you know, having a bunch of sweaty nerds over playing games and getting excited. So, you know, I always thought to myself, well, don't put in more money and effort than you're comfortable doing, because don't get burnt out. And so that's kind of how I always approach TOing. So I kind of understood that PM kind of had its own thing, and we've never really had large numbers where I'm from in Central California for PM, but I loved the game enough, and I was TO, so, you know, I got to make it happen, and I kept it there. And, you know, magically enough, we've ended up getting players like Metal Fingers and Doctor, and you see people like Slim Chang that go out of town and, you know, in the near future out of state, and I hope they do really well, because I want people to see that, you know, even the smallest region, even the middle of nowhere in California, has players that, if they have the drive to play, can keep up with players from big areas. And I think that is one of the nice things about PM as a TO, is that because it is kind of grassroots and it is kind of, you know, homegrown, you know, I can meet people like Kateri and Arrow and all them, and just have a great time getting to talk to them and kind of sharing the same struggles we all have. So.
Let's talk about Paragon. What was Paragon LA 2015? What was that tournament?
Paragon LA was a Smash Bros. Tournament that featured Melee, Smash 4, and Project M. At the time, Smash 4 had just come out. I think it was about 6 or 8 months old. Project M had just hit 3.6 final, or, well, it wasn't final at the time. It was just 3.6. The final came a little bit later. But at the same time, it was, I would say, the last big national to support all three of the, you know, holy trinity of Smash games. You know, you've got the new game, Smash 4 for the Wii U. You've got Melee, which is the old standby, and then you've got Project M, which was kind of like the cousin who always dresses in black and is a little edgy, but you love him anyways because he's family, and so you include him. And so Paragon LA, I think, still holds the title of being the largest Project M tournament, you know, on record. And, you know, even though it had its hiccups, they had some issues day of running it and everything, it was a really solid Project M tournament. And I think it's the last time we're going to see a lot of pros like Mewtwo King, Hungrybox, and others play Project M at a competitive, you know, kind of level with that kind of drive and focus. Unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say that, Paragon LA was kind of the last big hurrah for Project M in terms of nationals that got recognition from the esports side of things because they were kind of attached to Melee and Smash 4.
What was it like for you, kind of going to your first big PM?
Oh man, yeah. So Paragon LA, it really was my first big regional, let alone my first big national. And I just remember being so excited. I took the weekend off work, took a couple days on either end, so I had all the time to go. We went down to LA, went to the museums and everything. We made like such a big event out of it, and just getting to meet up with friends and everything. And I just remember being so excited about it because I was like, this is my time to see how I do against other people. I've been playing in town, been playing on net play and everything. Like I remember for a month, my net play tag was like Big Al practicing for Paragon LA. And I would ask everyone I played, are you going to Paragon LA? Because if I beat him, I'm like, yeah, that's one more person I might be able to beat in bracket to get out and things like that. And I remember a friend of mine, he didn't have a Wii U to practice on. He used the 3DS, so I lent him my Wii U and I was like, here, practice, because I know if anyone's going to get out of pools in this game, it's going to be you and not me. So take it and practice and bring it back to me. And like, it just felt, it was a bunch of these like small city kids getting ready to go down to LA and have a great time and play the games we love. And, not, I don't think any of us really made it out of pools from town, but we all had a great time. I got to meet, people like Blanksy and The Party and Humble Dojo, and just, I got to meet the people that I would come to kind of, admire and look up to a lot in the Smash scene, especially the PM scene, because I saw what they were doing. I saw how their attitude was. I saw how friendly everyone was, and how, even though it was a large, group of people all together, everyone seemed to know each other. Everyone seemed to have a good time. Everyone was friendly. And that is one of the big things I love about Smash, and especially tourneys, is that everyone, even with kind of the esports kind of aspect of things, people are just usually so friendly. Like I remember Paragon LA, top 8 day, we had, my brother and I were playing friendlies, and Mewtwo King just sat down, and he's like, hey, can I practice with you so I can warm up, before Project M top 8 started? And yeah, we played a couple sets with Mewtwo King, and you don't hear that in other sports. It's not like, oh, Federer and I played a couple warm-up sets, or, I got to, shoot some hoops with Kobe and all that. But in video games and Smash, especially, you can just kind of say hi to your favorite pros, get signatures, talk to them, and just kind of hang out. So that Paragon LA was just such a mind-opening experience for me. It really gave me the drive and kind of the inspiration to want to be a part of this community for Smash, and to want to put on events similar, even if they were a lot smaller, because our town can't support a national of that size. I hope to be proven wrong on that one day, but at the same time, it gave me the kind of fire to want to do stuff like that in the future.
Who won that tournament, and why was that a big deal?
Project M. That's the only one I remember who won, and that was ya boy, Mr. LZ, the young Game & Watch player. And that was significant because, like I said, since it was kind of the last send-off in terms of pros entering PM and playing and taking it seriously, a non-Melee player winning it, let alone, I think he was like, 13 at the time or something, let alone someone that young and kind of new to the scene winning it, was just really great. It was cool to see. People can argue that he was playing a character that is hard to handle. I think Game & Watch in Project M may be the perfect example of what we call jank, because a lot of his throws are hard to read, a lot of his follow-ups, are kind of DI dependent and things like that. I think he went on Twitter afterwards and saying, oh, I only won because y'all just don't know how to play against Game & Watch and things like that. But at the same time, I think it was important because it showed that Project M is a wide open game. The meta hasn't really developed enough that people know matchups, people know what the tiers are. You can ask 5 different pros what their tier lists are, and you'll probably get 5 different answers at this point, even a year or two after development is kind of finished. And that's what I like about Project M, is it's still new, it's still kind of crazy, and it reminds me of the old days of Melee, when you never knew who was going to come up and you never knew who was going to make waves.
happened with Paragon and Twitch? What happened at that event specifically?
I don't know a whole lot about what happened with Paragon and Twitch, so I might not be the best person to answer. From my understanding, Twitch gave them the ultimatum: you can't stream Project M on Twitch, even though this is a major, and even though you have our support, and so they kind of just had to drop it. And from my understanding, I don't know exactly how it all played out, but I do know afterwards, Paragon said we will no longer be having Project M at our tournaments, and that was kind of a big blow because, like I said, I loved Paragon. I was hoping to go to Paragon LA 2016, and it just wasn't there, and Project M, like it felt bad, and I think that was for me my first big experience of, majors and regionals kind of saying, hey, PM can't be here. And like I said, I came in after the whole Gamer and VGBC thing, but that kind of hurt. And for a minute, I understood how people felt about that and being like, well, we love this game. We take all the effort to show up and be here and, increase your numbers and registration and everything. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you guys still kind of don't want us there. And that hurt in a way, At first I was kind of upset, and then I understood why. But then just because I understand why doesn't mean, I have to kind of enjoy it.
Do you know anything about the interview that Mewtwo King gave during that tournament on VGBC?
No, yeah, I didn't see it, so.
Watch that, it's really funny.
Okay, I might.
And then sometime after that, in December later that year, what happened to Project M?
Oh, all right. So what happened in December for Project M? This is a good story because that was right around the time I was looking for venues for new tournaments. We had, lost our old venue, and I was desperately jonesing for some Smash. So I thought, all right, I'm just gonna rent a room out at our local college, and we'll just have a Smash Fest. I remember picking it for a day that the balcony was going to be running because I could have that stream up there and watch my favorite players play Project M and play Project M with people. And I remember checking Reddit in between setting up and seeing the post, that said, hey, Project M has ceased development. And there was this long kind of, public-facing post on the website. There were no more download links. And it was basically, I don't remember the full text of it, but it was, to paraphrase to the best of my memory, it was the dev team saying, we've hit a point where we don't feel comfortable continuing with development. We'd like to thank everyone for their time and for showing so much love to this game. And we hope, things continue to keep going. But at the same time, I was kind of, that day was really rough because, like I said, I was looking for venues. I was kind of discouraged. I was hoping to start being a TO, was hitting a bunch of roadblocks, and then to hear that my favorite game was no longer going to get updates, and that was kind of it. I thought at first I was excited because I heard a lot of people wanted to wait until the game had finished development before they started playing. But I liked getting patch updates. I liked getting, balance changes and things like that. And just hearing that there wasn't going to be any more Project M news coming out, it was a really rough day.
How did you feel about the way the team handled that announcement?
The Project M final announcement, I felt it was a mixed bag for sure. You had some people who were saying that, this is why we stopped. You had other people saying, no, this is why we stopped. And of course, with the internet, you're going to get a billion different stories. You had people popping up with anonymous names saying, oh, this is what happened, this is what happened. You had people making memes, asking, oh, why, what happened to PM? Why isn't PM coming back? And things like that. And then you had some people saying, well, I'm going to keep developing. And then you had other people in the group saying, no, you can't, because this is a lot bigger than you think it is. But when people asked, they're like, we can't tell you because we don't want to get, in trouble and things like that. So there was this really awkward period of a few months where the PM dev team kind of went into hiding, but didn't. And you could tell that some of them really cared about the game, and some of them also cared about the game, but really cared about not getting in trouble with whatever, I guess, kind of spooked them enough. I'm not friends with the dev team enough. I'm not close enough to a lot of them to kind of know what happened behind the scenes. So I can't say for sure why, the kind of sudden end happened and why there was kind of conflicting info in the weeks and months coming after. But it was the way they handled it. I think they tried to be professional, and then over time you could see the frustration and kind of the same feelings that they had that we had, that they were kind of upset. They kind of, weren't happy with how things went, and some people chose to respond in different ways.
Can you tell me what you what you think happened? Why do you think Project M ceased development, and do you think it was necessary? Do you think they should have done that?
Okay, so my thoughts as to why PM had to stop development. So I know a lot of people may not notice at the end of credits where there are some games where they say the software and code is copyright. Nintendo does that a lot. And America has what's called fair use policy, meaning if you're not profiting off something, you're pretty lax in how you can use it, as long as you give proper copyright and trademark kind of respect. And as long as, like I said, you're not trying to profit off it. I mean, there's people everywhere selling bootleg stuff and they don't get in trouble, but sometimes they do. Anyways, long story short, I think Project M, once it was hitting 3.7-ish and they were trying to add new characters that weren't previously in a Smash game playable, characters like Knuckles and Lyn and Isaac, and even to an extent Mewtwo, I think they got to a point where they were getting too far into the code that it was no longer a mod. It was kind of a fork of Brawl in a sense. And if they were modifying the code that deeply and using assets that were from other people, you've got Intelligent Systems for Lyn, you've got Sega for Knuckles, and heck, you even have Snake, which is technically Konami, and you have Sonic, which is Sega. You run into issues. It's no longer we're working with Nintendo, we're working with Nintendo and these 4 other companies. And Nintendo is a Japanese company first and foremost. Japan doesn't really have any fair use laws, from my understanding. They don't look too kindly on copyright infringement. And I think, the Project M team, the devs, were a group of people of various ages and backgrounds and professional kind of understanding of how things work. And I think they got to a point where they thought, hey, this could come back to really bite us in the butt. So before they could get in trouble, they figured we've gone this far, we should probably just put a cap on it and, kind of lie low and wait for things to blow over in hopes that nobody notices too much and sends some lawyers after us. And that, I think, is my understanding of what possibly caused the PM Dev team to call 3.6 the final release.
Taking into account that sort of viewpoint that they had, if you could say anything to the higher ups at Nintendo about this, what would you say? What would you say to them?
Nintendo, just let us do our own thing, please. That's all I ask. I really wish Nintendo would be more willing to allow people to have kind of a fair use kind of, practice on their stuff. I mean, you see stuff like AM2R coming out at the same time as the 3DS remake of Metroid 2. And you see interviews where Reggie's saying, well, one of them is a product we're selling at MSRP, the other one is a product that's free, and we can't have that competition kind of going on. And, I am a huge Nintendo fan. I have a Switch. I bought a Wii U at launch, despite everyone telling me not to, things like that. I love Nintendo. I will support them because they really have made some of my favorite games ever. And I love Melee. I love PM. I have a soft spot for 64. Brawl and Wii U, I even, I don't hate, unlike a lot of people. But at the same time, if I had 10 minutes with the Nintendo devs and shareholders, I would tell them, look at Project M, look at the scene it's made, look at the great moments people have had, look at these experiences. People's, you know, I'm not going to be like Hungrybox and say it's lifestyle necessarily, but people have definitely had a lot of fun with this. And I know for me personally, I have had so much fun getting to hang out with the SoCal people and the Arizona and the New York and the New Jersey and the Arizona and just everybody. It's been life-changing for me in that sense, as it's opened myself up. I've gotten a lot more sociable. I've learned how to run events. I've learned how to coordinate events with people. I've learned how to run streams, how to, you know, run a YouTube channel. I've learned so much from this game. And if Project M hadn't come out when it had, and if Project M hadn't been something I came across, I would probably not be playing Smash anymore. Project M was the reason I got back into Melee, Project M, and heck, even Wii U to an extent. So, you know, to make a long story short, if I had time alone with Nintendo execs, I would at the very least ask them to let PM be back on Twitch. I would at least ask them to give the dev team, you know, the ability to make the game they want without getting in trouble. As hard as that would be, even if it means they can't work on, you know, like Knuckles and Lyn and all that, you know, just have them work on what they've got. And I would ask them to be a bit less strict with their, you know, copyrighted characters and things like that. And I know that's kind of a, you know, dream, because most big companies aren't going to be willing to do that. But like I said, if we're talking hypotheticals, that would be my wish for Nintendo.
Do you know who Magus is?
Are we talking about the FGC, like Magus 1, 2, 3? I probably don't know who you're talking about then.
What has the scene sort of done in the time since then to sort of keep things alive and keep the game going?
How has the PM scene survived post 3.6F? I mean, they've been doing what they always do. You know, it's kind of been a, you know, not to be cliche, but keep calm and carry on sort of mindset. You know, a lot of people realized, hey, Nintendo's not going to sponsor us. Twitch isn't going to sponsor us. This is when we make our decision. Do we stick with PM or do we move on? And a fair amount of people moved on. But the people that stayed and kept with PM have done numerous things for the scene. You've got so many people, you know. Like I said, I just want to shout out every TO I've ever gotten the chance to work with or talk to or, you know, complain about general TO things with, all across the U.S. You see these wonderful events happening. You see stuff like Smash and Splash. You see stuff like Salty Juans. You see stuff like Super Duper Nova. You see stuff like the Bigger Balk and Low Tier City and, you know, Final Boss and things like that. And you see the love and the, you know, kind of community effort that gets put into these games and these events and these people, and it's just magical. Because, you know, people like to joke that PM's dead or PM should be dead or PM's dying, yet you still see consistent numbers week after week, month after month, year after year for these events. And like I said, we had Bigger Balk, which is one of the biggest PM tournaments. I want to say third biggest. I don't remember exactly, but it was up there. And for a game that by all accounts should be dead because a lot of little things and a lot of red tape and a lot of, you know, kind of esports tomfoolery has affected it, something like that to keep going in 2017 and beyond is just incredible.
What makes, I guess that's kind of be our wrap-up question.
Okay.
What makes you continue hosting Project M tournaments? Why do you do that?
What keeps me hosting Project M tournaments? At the base, it is a game I love. I love the character roster. I love the music. I love the stages. I love how it plays, how it feels. But I think the biggest reason that I keep running PM tournaments, and I'm gonna get a little teary-eyed here, a little mushy. I don't know if you guys know of a player from Kern County. His tag is Doctor. But basically, he started coming to tournaments after that Extra Life tournament we ran, and he wanted to get better. And at first, I used to be able to beat him. You know, a lot of people used to be able to beat him. But he kept coming back, and he kept playing, and he kept getting better. And eventually he got better than us. And eventually I thought, you know what? You're an awesome guy. This Zelda character is total BS, but I want people to see it. Let's start going to tourneys, you know. And then he started going to tourneys on his own, you know, taking the bus, taking the train, doing whatever he could to get out. And I'm like, I want to see that happen more, so I want to take you to tourneys. And the more tourneys I went to, the more people I got to meet, the more I got to see stuff happen. And then lo and behold, this past year, Doctor ended up on the SoCal PR, you know. And for a player from a town that maybe has, I don't know, less than 24 active Project M players, for someone like that to kind of just come up out of the woodwork and be able to hold his own in a region that's like the arguably one of the best regions for Project M in the US, heck, even the world, has just been magical for me. And I thought, you know, I had a part in that. You know, I may not be able to help him practice, I may not be that good to keep up with him, but I could host a place where he could practice against people. I could host a place where he could do stuff. I could keep PM alive, even in the smallest way. And that's why, you know, I'm under the belief that as long as PM has people like Doctor, people, you know, like Links in the party doing documentaries, and people like, you know, Zesty and Jason running events and Dojo and everything, and everyone, it's a community effort. We don't have Nintendo and Twitch helping us, but we have one another helping us. And I see that, and I see the people, and I see everyone that I love and adore, that I get to hang out with and play games with and do this nerdy thing that I love to do. So that's what keeps me coming back and hosting tourneys, is people like Doctor that just kind of come out of nowhere, make a name for themselves, and I just couldn't be happier that it just happened to be in my little town and my little bi-weekly that I get to run.